Good morning. I'm Sharon Pinkston. For those of you that don't know me or couldn't remember my name, and you're doing better than I am because I've forgotten a lot of names. But I know this lady, and we're going to interview Miss Dorothy Prevatt, longtime member of our church, longtime member of our missions groups. She has great cause to support our mission groups because she's a missionary mama. So, Miss Dorothy, if you'll give us a word of your testimony and what you don't cover, I'll try to pick out the questions that you have covered so we're not being redundant. Okay?
Well, thank you. Yes, our daughter Kathy Casey is a missionary in the Middle East. I feel called to be a missionary parent. When God called my daughter to be a missionary, He called me to be the parent of a missionary. And I've taken that call very seriously. I've, of course, helped support her, and I've helped support other parents of missionaries. Not all missionaries go with the support of their parents. Maybe half of them go without the support of their parents. And so I've been able to help some parents in that way to be able to appreciate their children's call and to help support them. Before Kathy was born, I prayed for her that God would use her in His will. I had two prayers for her. One, that she would know and accept the Lord as her Savior. And two, was that she would follow His will for her life. And so God has answered those prayers, and I've seen those prayers answered. So when she's made known to us that God was calling her to be a missionary, I was pleased to see that she was answering His call, and I could not object to that call. Many parents do, but I was pleased to know that she was following the Lord's will for her life. Kathy and Mark went as 2 years as volunteers for my church in South Florida. Our church had given money to build churches in East Africa, and the church pastor asked Mark if he would like to go and supervise the building of those churches, and he said yes. So our church sent them for 2 years, and during that time, Mark realized that the way to go was through the International Mission Board rather than going out on his own, but to go be supported through IMB. And so he came back and met the educational requirements, and they were appointed in 2000 to go as IMB missionaries. And their first assignment was to Sierra Leone in West Africa. And since then, they've been in Jordan and in East Africa and Sudan. And we've had an opportunity to visit them in all those locations. And that has been one of the benefits of being a missionary parent, is to get to travel and places that we never would have chosen to go. But we've had an opportunity to go and been blessed through that, to meet the nationals in those countries. And they always arranged for us to have a meal in the home of a national. And that was things that the average traveler does not get to do. But we were blessed in that way. And we got to see our children growing up in other countries, and the children that they would meet and grow up with. Our grandchildren grew up as MKs in another country. Laura did not adapt to the language as well as Josh, but Josh just had a gift for picking up the language. And he would go out when they landed in a new place and go out and meet the boys in the streets and come back, and he could pretty much speak their language. He just had a gift for that. Mark met the nationals, and he met a lot of them through going to coffee houses and having coffee. And Mark does not like coffee, but he would go and drink coffee as a way to meet the nationals and to form relationships with them in that way. Kathy did not have that opportunity to meet the people in that way, but she would go to the women, and they would meet together in the women's homes, and in some places they would paint their hands and their arms and their faces with the paint that the national ladies paint themselves in as part of their culture. But I think that one of the best things that we did was to travel, to see where they lived, so much better understanding of their situation and where they lived, to go and to see it, because we could never have imagined where they lived and the circumstances, but they lived comfortably in all the places that they lived. They were able to furnish their houses with comfortable furniture. Many times they would have to buy all the furniture after they arrived in the country, because they were not able to ship their furniture, because it's expensive to ship household goods from one country to another. And so they would have to furnish their homes after they got there. But they were always really able to do that. And their kitchens would have nothing in them. They would have to buy a stove and refrigerator and all their kitchen accessories that they had. But they were able to do that. And Mark soon learned how to converse with the people in the country that they were in, and how to negotiate and barter to furnish their homes. But they were able to do that, and he soon made friends with the people in their country.
Boy, you answered like 80% of these questions. Good job.
What's the other 20?
Good job. Well, my mind just went blank, but you told us where they serve, but you're not allowed to tell us a specific place. Is that correct?
I can't tell you where they are now, no.
And why is that? Is it dangerous for them? Dangerous for you?
No,
Or
no, it is not dangerous for them, but it is dangerous for the believers in their country, because they're in a country that is very anti-Christian. It's a very strong Muslim country. Believers are persecuted. They can be arrested. They can be thrown in jail. They can even be killed if they convert to Christianity. So they have to be very careful in their contacts with Christians and with believers, because it is unsafe for believers. It is not, well, I don't know, they've never had an instance where it was unsafe for Kathy and Mark, but for the believers. So they have to be very careful.
what do Kathy and Mark do that sets them apart? That is it because they're American, or is it understood they're a believer? Believers.
Yes.
And the country and the government basically leaves them alone?
A lot of and some of the places they've been, if you were an American or you're considered European, they expect you to be Christian.
Oh, okay.
So they're expected to be Christian.
But they don't want them teaching their
No,
people about
right.
Christianity. So what does Mark do for a living besides?
And now Mark works with a sports ministry.
Cool.
Yes, he plays sports and plays basketball with the young men in this country. He makes arrangements for sports figures from the U.S. to come to their country and have sports clinics and to play basketball, primarily basketball, with the national people. Some of you may remember Manute Bowl. He was a 7+ foot basketball player. He's arranged for Manute Bowl to visit. Manute Bowl was well over 7 foot, and one of the missionaries that was working with them was Little Debbie. And Little Debbie was less than 5 feet tall. Can you imagine 7+ foot Manute Bowl next to little, less than 5 foot Debbie? And somewhere I have a picture, but I wasn't able to get it out of the two of them. That was quite a picture to have. But
I think Manute Bol is still listed as the tallest NBA player ever.
Wow.
and he was tall. So,
I'm trying to remember. I saw a YouTube video on someone that had participated in one of those clinics, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it was, but I have heard of it.
mhm.
So, and what does Kathy do?
Okay. Kathy has a full-time job keeping things running straight. She makes all the travel arrangements. She handles all the bookkeeping. She handles the money. Plus she maintains the home, runs the home. She's a hostess with the mostest.
Yay.
But those are her primary roles, and then the contact with the women.
Okay. Now, I believe you have a sort of kind of new great-granddaughter.
I do.
So what does Kathy and Mark do about that?
Well, they just went to see her and
Oh.
then had to say goodbye. And there's a picture going around somewhere. There's a calendar. Yes. And Laura grew up in Sudan and went to the international school there. So then when she was grown, she went to Dubai to work and met a young man there who was from Kenya. And so she was in church, and the pastor said, take the hand of the person sitting by you. So she took the hand of this young man she had never met before, and they held hands in the service, and I don't know what it was for, but they've been holding hands ever since. And James is from Kenya, and so they've been married, so that's their baby there. Okay.
Are you allowed to make phone calls to them, or do you email? How do you communicate with?
I email. They phone call me. I cannot phone call them. So I just hope that they call me from time to time. Oh, but I can't call them.
You can't do the video chat thing, huh?
Well,
If you knew how.
if I knew how,
Hey, we've
then
got
they call
teachers
me.
here.
Yeah, and they call me.
Okay. They just went back to the field recently. How are you doing since then?
I'm doing fine.
Was there any particular season that it was harder than others to let them go?
I think in a way it gets harder each time. You would think I would get used to it, and in a way I am used to their going, but it doesn't make it any easier. It's still hard to say goodbye, and we still have the tears. Both of us
Of course.
have the tears when it's time to say goodbye. I don't go to the airport with them. We say goodbye, and they usually have a rental car, and they turn it in at the airport.
Okay. That hurts. Let's see, you said you've been to see them.
Yes.
Do they ask you to do any American errands for them while they're away?
Not so much now, but at first there was a lot of things that they did. They asked us to, their children were small, and they would ask for certain things for them. But today, where they are especially, everything is available to them, so they don't ask for anything. But at first, Bill would do a lot of their banking, and at income tax time, we would gather all their information for their tax returns and send it to Richmond to the International Mission Board. And the International Mission Board has a service for missionaries, and they prepare their income tax. We had to send the information to support the income tax, but they prepared it for them. But the last couple of years, Kathy has sent that information to the International Mission Board. So that is a service that the board provides, and it's a very valuable service because they know what they can list as Americans living abroad. It's a different tax return.
Has there been, I asked you if there were times that were more seasons, some seasons that were more difficult. When you hear of unrest in these countries, and like we hear of unrest here at home, and our fear level goes, sky high, our heart rates go up, our pulses, breathing goes up, and anxiety. Did you have a way of coping with that kind of anxiety?
Yes, I just pray about it, and I know that they're where the Lord called them to be, and I just trust Him that He is taking care of them. And they have been in some situations. They've been expelled from a country. They got to the capital city, and they stayed there, and the country didn't even know they were still in the country. But they lived there 2 years before they left.
Wow. That is certainly God's grace and mercies renewed each day, isn't it?
Yes.
Wow. How is our church supporting them?
Our church supports them through our tithes and offerings and the cooperative program.
Mm-hmm.
The part of the cooperative program goes to the International Mission Board, and they are supported through the International Mission Board. So when we give our tithes and offerings, a portion of that helps support them. So they are supported in that way. They do not have to, quote, raise their support by asking individuals to give so much to support them. They quote, raise their support by speaking to churches and, asking churches to support the International Mission Board, not to support them as individuals, but to support the cause of international missions. So when you give through international missions, you are helping to support them. It may be just a minute of a few cents of that, but all of it together helps support them. And they do appreciate it. They appreciate not having to come and say, will you support me? So keep that in mind, that you are supporting.
Yeah,
You're
that is
supporting.
true. That is so true. A lot of independent missionaries they'll be in the States a year, 2 years, 3 years, trying to raise support, and that's time that our missionaries can be on the field and working because of the way we support them. And
Yes.
our church budget is over $1 million a year, I believe, and so 9 or 10% of that is going to the cooperative program, and that there's a good portion of that that goes to the IMB, and the other part of it goes to the North American Mission Board. And you know, in some of these countries, especially when my brother was in South America, you know, money goes a lot further, a little bit of money, and then there are other countries like Japan that are very expensive to live,
Yes.
and so they're able to give them the amount of support that they need wherever they are.
Yes.
Do they have any recent prayer concerns that we can pray about?
Yes. Let's see, I've got some written down.
Okay.
The pray about the safety of believers, because they're in a country where believers' lives are in danger. So pray
I
about,
wanted to ask you about that because Sharia law and the Muslims, they view outsiders, foreigners, differently than a Muslim that converts to Christianity, right?
yes,
That's a big difference there. They sort of put up with the foreigners, but if one of their own converts, that's where the danger
yes,
is.
yes. So pray for believers, because they when they become a believer, they put their lives in danger. And pray for the believers to have the courage and the opportunity to share their faith with other nationals. And that's how we refer to people who live in the country, as nationals. And then pray for the nationals to be able to make friends that they can share their faith with. And I pray for Mark to be able to drink coffee.
Does he have to drink it black?
I think they do primarily drink it black. And
Yes, we'll certainly lift him up.
oh, and pray for Kathy to have a friend, another lady that she can share with. We as women know how important it is to have another lady that we can share with, and to yes, and then to pray that they finish well. This is their last term overseas. They're scheduled to retire in December of next year. So pray that they finish their overseas service well. And pray for the person who will take their place. And pray for Kathy as she is able to turn over the reins of all the book work that she does, and the person that she turns it over to, that they can learn it.
Ms. Dorothy, are there replacements on site now? Are they working with them now, or are they still waiting?
No, they still don't know who it is.
How long is the term?
Usually, they go for a year or 2 years. I mean, if they go for a year, for a year they get 3 months. If they go they had to go for 4 years, and for 4 years then you could come home for a year. Or today missionaries don't stay that long. They may go for a year or 2 years. A lot of them go for 2 years, then they have 6 months in the States. Or if they go for 3 years, then they have 9 months in the States. And those with children usually have their stateside assignment to correspond with the school year for their children. And so it depends on that, but usually it's 3 months for a year of service.
Any questions?
Any other questions?
Miss?
Yes.
Dorothy, did your grandchildren get their education by homeschooling, or did they actually attend schools in those places?
Very little homeschooling, and Kathy said she was thankful for that. No, they had American schools
Oh,
that they could attend.
Sue?
And then Laura went away to boarding school for her high school education. Josh, they moved to Nairobi for Josh to go to school, because he would not have done well in a boarding school. So he went to an American school in Nairobi.
Sue, you had a question?
Yes, Dorothy, weren't you invited to another state to help organize a group?
Yes. We had an opportunity to help Florida parents meet together and form a fellowship, because missionary parents have needs and that other parents just don't understand. And I'm not belittling other parents, I'm just saying that when we put our children on a plane, and for the first time we thought it could be 4 years before we saw them again. Other parents don't have that experience. And so there's certain things, that we just have it, we bond together. And so Bill and I formed a fellowship of parents in Florida. And so we were invited to go to Tennessee and South Carolina to help parents in those states to form fellowships. Well, so we had that opportunity, and it was a blessing.
My mom would have been signed up on the first one, and she didn't even have missionary kids. She just needed the support of her daughters going away. Any other questions or remarks?
Yes.
I have a couple of remarks. I know Dorothy very well, and she's just been a wonderful influence in my life and a mentor. And a couple of things about food over there. I went to join a couple of mission trips with Mark and Kathy in southern Sudan. And so when I went there, when you go on mission trips, sometimes the missionaries ask you to bring something, and you know what they wanted me to bring them? Jiffy muffin mix. So things that we might not think about, they can't get. So I took them Jiffy muffin mix. I packed them when I went in 2004 and 2005. So that's kind of an interesting fact. And Lottie Moon offering is so important. And the one thing that I can remember is when we were in southern Sudan. They were stationed in Nairobi, but then we flew into Akat, southern Sudan. And when you the roads there, the bush out in the bush on the roads, the trees or the bushes were like way up here. You couldn't even see, way past your windshield. And we were in this Jeep that was, very run down, but I mean, it was a great Jeep. And I can remember when Mark was driving in it, he was commenting if they could never do what they do without this Jeep, and they bought it used, and they had to save up for it, and they got it with the Lottie Moon funds. So it just touched me, and I still remember how he was saying how valuable that Jeep was to their work there, and how, if it wasn't for Lottie Moon, they could not have gotten that Jeep and stuff. And the third thing I want to point out is they were stationed, their home base was in Nairobi, but they had to fly into southern Sudan, Akat. And when they were over there, that was hard. I didn't realize it until I got home how hot it was, but it was like 110 and 120 degrees out there. And the second time I went there, they have machine guns, the villagers there, and, you know, that's when all the unrest was going over there. So what I want to say is for our missionaries, a lot of them are really under distress and arrest to share God's word. And so Mark and Kathy, when they went in there, you know, they really have been under some distress in their life to serve God. And Mark, I can always remember him saying it's about relationship and stuff. And, you know, we did medical missions when I went over there and stuff. So they really have served well under some very uncomfortable circumstances. You know, when we went into a cot, we were there for 2 weeks. But, you know, he was there for like months under these environment and stuff. So, you know, they have served the Lord very well in their life. And Dorothy has too, especially with Dorothy and Bill. Let's remember Bill, you know, as missionary parents and as an encourager, and Maxine too. And many others have here too in this room, but these two especially, you know, have served me well. But I just want to point out that Mark and Kathy have been in I have personally seen the environment that they have worked in and stuff. So I just want to acknowledge that.
I add, you know, the Lottie Moon offering, every single penny goes to foreign missions. None of it stays in administration or here in the U.S. It's everything is designated for foreign missions.
Yes, that is absolutely true. The percentage of our budget, some of that will go to pay for, you know, like the tax returns, services and things like that.
Yes.
But the Lottie Moon that's above and beyond the percentage we give out of the budget, and that all 100% goes to the missionaries on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And we were personally involved in that because we had a car. We didn't have an air conditioner. And on the way back from our area would be sometimes 45 minutes to an hour. And Lima is very polluted. So we breathe all of that all the time. So my husband got to a point where he said, either buy me a new car or buy get me an air conditioner. And it came at Lottie Moon time, we got a new car with an air conditioner.
Any other questions, comments?